So, the nearly $400 million project was started in the early 90s by Circus Enterprises, the same company which owned the Circus Casino down the Las Vegas Strip. The idea was to build a striking, highly themed casino resort that would appeal more towards families, complete with Disney-level theming as well as rides and attractions. With an Egyptian theme chosen, the now named Luxor would rise out of the Nevada desert at 357 feet tall, making it the 12th largest man-made pyramid in the world. It opened in late 1993 with quite a bit of fanfare and a whole lot of excitement. Many people who visited the pyramid through the 90s would come to really like its spectacle. Today, however, it's a different story. I'll get into specifics later, but the grandeur of the Luxor today has been lost a little when we arrived. The eastern face of the pyramid was covered in a giant advertisement for Doritos, our perfect introduction to the Egyptian world we're about to enter. So we got a slightly more unique room, and I'll show you that in a sec. But we first need to get there up on the 29th floor, one just below the apex. That means you'll need to ascend the pyramid, and of course it's going to be a little weird. To do so, you need to board these elevators, which are actually called inclinators. They run over slanted tracks and travel at an angle. Apart from the very rough condition they're in, it's an unsettling sensation, especially from the rattling and the vibrations they make. Thankfully, we did make it to our floor, and we reached our very exclusive-looking double doors. This is our room, a Pyramid Elite Suite, and when first walking in, you'll notice it's pretty big. Immediately to the left, you have a sizable guest bathroom, and beside that is a wet bar, which features a gold and black sink and a wine fridge. The living room also has a high table dining set and a large L-shaped couch, as well as a TV. And then you have the bedroom, which is another very large space with a lot of square footage, and that's because of the unique architecture of the room, near the apex of the pyramid. That means the walls are very slanted, and a lot of the square footage is basically unusable. You do get a large king bed with reasonably comfortable linen, though a pretty hard mattress. There's another TV, which barely works, and a closet area, which is adjacent to the massive bathroom. Here you get a full tub, 2 sinks, a stand-up shower, and a closed-off toilet room, though the bathroom itself does not have a door. Overall, I don't really know if this room has anything to do with the resort's theme of Egypt. It's kind of just decorated as a generic hotel suite. There are really only 1 or 2 nods to that theme, my favorite of which is the genie lamp for the bathtub faucet. I suspect that was left in place from the original fixtures. Despite this being a suite, upon closer inspection, this room doesn't necessarily put the luxe in Luxor. To put it bluntly, the entire room is extremely worn. There is wear and tear in basically every room, with walls, trim, and fixtures. I mean, everything has marks and scuffs. The overall cleanliness of the room is also a bit concerning, with the air conditioning units looking filthy. In fact, I actually couldn't get the living room air to work, as despite me dropping the desired temperature as low as it could go, it would just blast hot air. Thankfully, the bedroom AC was working, so I just kept that one running with the living room one off. Probably the most heinous lack of cleanliness was found on the living room couch, as it looked to be in horrible condition, with the overall vibe of disheveledness. Visible stains could be seen under black light. Clearly the sofa has seen some abuse, and probably other stuff. The wooden housing under the wine fridge has also seen some spillage over the years, as it looks like the wood is now rotting away. Really, the whole room felt very tired and clearly had a note of cigarette smoke in the air, despite this of course being a non-smoking room. Even the bath towels stenched of smoke. But maybe the view would make up for it. Yeah, not really. Our window was located near the top of the building, but it was also behind the massive MGM Betts scrim, which meant our view was very obstructed and very difficult to see out of. It also dramatically reduced the amount of light that would shine through, so much so that when I woke up the next day, I didn't even know if it was daylight or not. That's actually a shame though, since the room would otherwise have a great view of the distant mountains. So yeah, I think this room was passable, but not great. But this was a suite after all, and there are a few categories below this, like a standard pyramid room, a premier room, and a jacuzzi pyramid room. There are also a few corner rooms, and of course this suite, which is the highest category you can get within the pyramid. But there are also 2 adjacent towers to the pyramid, and those feature some more standard hotel rooms as well as 1 and 2 bedroom suites. Honestly, apart from the novelty of staying within the pyramid, I would probably suggest staying in those. Of course, all of these are priced differently, and I'll get into that later. But before we get into amenities here, I want to take a quick moment. So when you're walking to your room, you get to see all that Luxor has to offer. That's just beyond this vertigo-inducing railing as you peer out over the whole atrium. Below, you can see many of the amenities offered here, along with the theming, which also includes this Egyptian town that for some reason has the Chrysler building in it. I don't really know what happened here, because this was here since the structure was built, and even shown in the model concepts for it. So I don't really understand it. When you're down below, you have roughly 2 main levels to explore. Upon first entering the building through the porte cochere, you're confronted with large statues and flanking fountains. This leads you right into the smoky and dim casino floor, which, I don't know, it's a casino. It looks just about the same as every other casino floor in the string of MGM hotels. I don't gamble, so I don't really know the nuances, if any. Maybe there are machines that are different here, but it all seems rather generic and standard. Surrounding the casino are a few restaurants like Public House, Tender, and Pyramid Cafe, as well as other amenities like an esports thing, 2 separate Starbuckses that are literally 300 feet away from each other, and a buffet that's tucked away in the basement. The open areas around the casino floor are both wide open, yet feel weirdly claustrophobic with low ceilings right beside large Egyptian statues. Now there are several escalators that lead you up to the second level within the atrium, a more entertainment-focused area that features live shows like Carrot Top, a comedian that has a long-term residency, Fantasy, a very family-friendly show, Blue Man Group video on my main channel, and an America's Got Talent theme show. But there's also some other attractions like King Tut, an exhibit showcasing replica artifacts from ancient Egypt, a pretty neat looking visual exhibition of the human body, appropriately called Bodies, while right beside it is the star of the show for me, Titanic, the Artifact Exhibition. This was something I was genuinely looking forward to, as I knew they had the infamous Big Piece, a massive section of the hull of the actual Titanic on display. They actually have a ton of authentic artifacts from the shipwreck, which was very impressive as someone who is deeply interested in ships and the story of the Titanic. But as incredible as it was to see the Big Piece, I also couldn't help but think that this was the least appropriate place for it to be on display. In a campy glass pyramid disguised as a Dorito in the desert with people staying above it, a casino below it, and Fantasy across from it. The $70 we paid for 2 people was honestly kind of worth it just to see the Big Piece. But it also got me thinking on the ethics of the whole experience, from the horrible acting and the poorly produced supplementary videos to the gaudy photo ops. It felt very disrespectful, especially once we reached the gift shop. Like, why are we selling Titanic snow globes? They wouldn't be doing that with other mass casualty events that happened 100 years ago. Also, this $189 coin picture thing doesn't even have all of the photos from Titanic. That's staircase photos from Olympic, come on. I don't know, it was really something seeing all these artifacts, but there is also a reason why actual Titanic museums don't feature salvaged items. Anyways, this was the only form of entertainment we attended at Luxor, but there is more on this level. There is a Mexican bar and eatery, a brand new indoor playground area for adults, an O2 Vitality bar that is basically just pseudoscience nonsense, and the food court, which is really a hit or miss. Mostly misses though. We decided to eat here for lunch at Bonanno's New York Pizzeria, which has individual slices that cost $10 each. Emmy got a slice and I got a stromboli, which came out to a very expensive $29. And it was pretty bad. Outside of the core lobby activities, you can indulge in other vices too, like shopping, which Luxor is conveniently attached to the shops at Mandalay Bay. It feels a little more premium and has some good shops with a direct connection to the Mandalay Bay Resort. The same cannot be said for the opposite side of the building, as once you pass the convention center area, you enter the meandering bridge over to the Excalibur, another MGM-owned resort. However, this one is in much worse shape, and the shops that populate this pathway are tacky and probably not worth your time. Elsewhere is a spa, which has treatments that are comparatively priced to other hotels in the area, even luxury ones, though it does have good reviews. Outside is the main pool deck, which isn't anything too impressive, but it is large. Now I mentioned you can walk to the other sister resorts, but you can also walk out front, past the massive Sphinx, and board a tram that runs between all 3 MGM resorts on this side of the strip. However, strangely, on the day that we were staying there, only one side of the tram was working, while the other one that actually stops at Luxor was down for the day, I guess. I say I guess because it wasn't posted anywhere, and people were waiting there for like 30 minutes for a tram that was just never going to come. That was very annoying. But if the giant Dorito hadn't given it away already, this resort has lost a lot of its original theming and charm. Back when it opened in late 1993, the resort had a highly themed indoor experience that included a boat ride and a simulator, which featured its own original storyline. It all seemed honestly pretty impressive in the beginning. Obviously, that indoor boat ride is gone. It was removed 3 years later in 1996 after an overall renovation. It's a shame though, as it gave some overall kinetic energy to the building, and was also free of charge. The simulator ride, for its part, closed in 2004. As a part of that 1996 renovation though, the resort was planning to expand with more hotel rooms, and early plans for this called for 5-story lodging buildings that surrounded the exteriors and were made to look like an Egyptian village. Lush landscaping and that river ride, now moved outside, would snake through this area. It looked really cool. Of course though, that vision would not materialize, and instead 2 black, all-glass towers were added. This is also while other nice elements like the outdoor water fountain and its accompanying water show was also removed. A valet parking lot and a monorail station now takes its place. So overall, the highly themed original vision of the resort has been severely diminished. But let's take a look at value, particularly what I paid for our Pyramid Elite Suite. I can complain all I want about the roughness of the hotel and the hollowness of the creative vision, but I really can't complain about price. We paid just $164 for our suite. Honestly, that's not too bad. Now, while I would say the value is pretty decent, the product itself also feels like a $164 suite, maybe even a little worse off. That is also an off-season rate. We visited in the winter. Though it's not all that hard to find Luxor with a base rack rate of just $25 a night. Though with its $37 daily resort fee, the cheapest standard king bedroom comes out to still a pretty crazy $62 a night, which is incredibly cheap. If you want to stay in the tower outside of the pyramid, where the rooms look slightly nicer, they start at $70 a night, while a pyramid corner suite starts at $111. The larger 1-bedroom tower suites start at $151, while the top tier 2-bedroom suites at $261. Now there are also larger luxury suites that are apparently difficult to book and are typically reserved for people high up in MGM's loyalty program or people who have spent a lot of time in the casino. Regardless, these bookable rooms are incredibly cheap, though it's also not hard to find days where they are much more than this. $62 a night is objectively very affordable for any hotel. That's less than most trusted roadside hotels. But the quality and the overall atmosphere here is bad, and you are absolutely paying for what you get. It's not a good vibe here, and that's the sacrifice you're making for such a cheap room. But this is also Vegas, and cheap hotels are not all that hard to find, especially decent ones. The Flamingo does have a better location, with many arguing that the rooms are better. The Link also features better rooms and has a more modern resort experience, and both of these resorts can be found at a similar price. But if you're looking to book a larger room at Luxor and getting into the $120 plus range, there are just so many other options I would go for, like the Virgin Hotel, the Hilton at Resorts World, and the Park MGM, all of which are sub $200 a night. Luxor is located on the far south end of the Strip. Other than the tram service that connects the 2 other MGM hotels, as well as a walking bridge, it is a bit far from what most would consider to be the center of the Strip, with all of the nice resorts. But it is on the Strip, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Amenities are tough. There is a lot on paper, like the aforementioned tram, a pool, a casino, the exhibits, the shows, food, and drink. Many of them, though, just offer a low-quality experience. It's a 4 out of 10. Luxury, even in the context of the price point, is basically non-existent. Everything is tired looking, there is very little on offer as a guest for you other than upsells, and the rooms are in desperate need of updating and cleaning. I would not consider this a quality experience even for the price point, and it's a 3 out of 10. Service was fine, it's a 4 out of 10. Value, well, you get what you pay for, I guess. Vegas has a lot of alternatives for our particular room, and I would honestly rather stay at a Courtyard by Marriott rather than what we had. On the flip side, the rock bottom rates this big triangle offers is hard to compete with, so I have to give it at least a 6 out of 10. That brings the total score to 22 out of 50, making it it is the lowest hotel I have yet to stay in. It's also quite possibly the weirdest, so overall, I would not stay here again. I think there are other options, and when budgeting a trip to Vegas, I would prioritize the resort over the lowest per night rate you can get. Because even if you're staying here at the lowest rate, you're still factoring in the quality of the service you're getting, the quality of food, all of the upsells, possibly your health in the rooms. I think there's a lot to consider, and there's other properties that can offer better. I will say though, it was an interesting stay here. Again, it was my first trip to Las Vegas. We were coming here to see the once abandoned Fontainebleau finally reopen. So it was quite the switch from going to Luxor at the beginning of my trip, ending in Fontainebleau at the end.